Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Fandom Empire Live. It is Saturday, October the 24th, 2020. A rare Saturday stream for us. It's not typical that we're here on a Saturday, and it's a special occasion that we've been building up to for a while. We've been advertising it on our social media channels for a while, definitely hinting at the possibility of it, and the day has finally arrived. First up, joining us, not as always, but often, it's Ray. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going. Thanks for having me back. I've been looking forward to this one for a while since you mentioned it to me. I'm just glad the day's here. We can get down to business. And always shout out my Mary Janie and my Suicide crew.
Also joining us, the special guest of the hour. It's would co-author be the proper title? Co-author of not only Taking Shape 2, but the first Taking Shape book, Dustin McNeil. How's it going, man?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure to have you, dude. We've been following your work for a while now, and I'm a slow reader, so like you're getting both sides of the scale here. Ray has already finished the book.
One day.
and I'm about 100 pages into it, so I like to take my time. So you got one of us that have read the whole book, and then the other one who's just sort of slowly making his way.
Well, yeah, I have to say, before we get into my work, I'm just now, since we finished the book, catching up on a lot of the cool fan projects that have been talked about and coming together this past year. And I just 10 minutes ago finally got around to watching the teaser trailer for Haddonfield the Vanished, and I backed it on Indiegogo. So that's really going to be awesome that it's coming out in October of 2021. So that we've got 2 Halloween films to look forward to next October.
Well, actually, we have 3. You might be a fan to know about this one. Is we just on Thursday, by the way, thank you for backing the campaign like that. That's extremely generous of you.
Thank you.
Braden Timmons is releasing you were mentioning you were a big Halloween H2O fan, and Braden Timmons is doing his own Indiegogo thing. They've already raised their money. They're in the middle of shooting. It's called The Haddonfield Nightmare, and what it is it's his own sequel to Halloween H2O. So they come out, I think, October 1st. We're October 8th. And then the following week is, fingers crossed, Halloween Kills. So 3 tremendous weeks of just Halloween fan content.
But you and I saw Halloween Kills already.
No, it's we're really looking forward to it. And thanks for supporting it like that, man. It's appreciated.
Absolutely. I've got a lot to catch up on. I'm going to have to look that up now.
You got a lot of, I don't know if you have a lot of free time on your hands, but I imagine now that the 600-page phone book is in the work or in the books, it must be nice to just sort of, have a breath of fresh air and take some time away from it now.
Very much so. But yeah, a lot of people compare it to a phone book, and I think that's an appropriate comparison. But you got to watch that with the younger kids because they don't know what a phone book is.
Well, another thing that I found was great about it, and not just because I'm a super reader, but I love how you keep the print a certain size so that it's easy to read in a single sitting, if that's what some people want to do, where the lettering is just so small, where you got to hold it really close. And I think you get what I'm trying to say. Like, it's the how you, like, how it's like written out and like the amount on one page. It's not like takes you 20 minutes to read one page. You know what I mean? You can just do it fairly quickly. Like if you're really into it, you're like skimming, like, and it's just very easy to read if you are an avid reading fan.
I'm glad you appreciate it. That was probably for Travis and myself as much as it was for you, because we had to read it 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, I'll start off with a softball. I love the cover, man. Now, how much of a say do you guys get in the cover? Is it all you guys? Is it the publisher? Like, where's it go with that? Because I just think there's something simple about it, and sometimes I think less is more, and I think it's quite perfect.
Well, thank you very much. As far as how much say, I actually am the publisher. I
Oh.
own and operate Harker Press. It's my own indie imprint that does mostly horror movie books. And the artwork was designed by a good friend of mine who also did the cover for Taking Shape 1, Tony Todoroff. He's fantastic. And, I gave him I told him what I wanted, and he went off and came up with this, which we immediately fell in love with, and we just said, that's the cover.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
The covers, I have a hard time picking my favorite. They're both fantastic. So, well done there.
I definitely think less is more. I'm definitely a less is more guy. I think Ray's a less is more guy, and they definitely resonate with us pretty well. So I know people want to hear about Taking Shape 2, but I've been dying to talk to you just about the first book and what led to creating Taking Shape, because I believe in the prologue of Taking Shape 2, you mentioned how originally it was all going to be one book, and then it sort of took on a life of its own and expanded. What led to the first book and the project in general?
Well, I started writing horror movie books back in 2014 with Phantasm Exhumed, which was the companion to the Phantasm series. It was 4 films at the time. And for my first book, that turned out pretty well, all things considered. And so I just wanted to keep doing it. And I wrote about Freddy versus Jason, about the 10 different screenplays that they considered for that one. And I wrote about the Jaws ride from Universal Studios Florida, which you can see Jaws poking out behind me here. And I had to build up some confidence before I took on Halloween, because I've always been such a diehard Halloween fan. I just know that it's the most top shelf horror franchise that I can think of. And so after 4 or 5 books, I was finally ready to tackle it.
Ray, next one.
Well, that's an odd choice, for Phantasm, because not a lot of people would generally know that. They would, if you ask favorite horror series, that might not come up. They would either say Halloween, Friday, or Nightmare on Elm Street. But Phantasm, I would actually like to check that out. And definitely the Jaws ride, because I have fond memories of it. And one day at Universal Studios when I was there when I was 16, that was the ride that I just kept going back to. So, would you ever do a book about? I know we want to stick to Taking Shape here, but about the Jaws franchise and the troubled history with that?
So there are already so many fantastic books about the first Jaws. I couldn't imagine throwing my hat in that ring.
Okay.
But and there's even a pretty great book about Jaws 2. But now, when you get into the legacy and the franchise of Jaws, you've got some opportunities, especially with some of the later sequels, which aren't as revered.
Right.
Now, whether anyone besides me wants to read a book about those movies, I guess we'll have to find out one day. But yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, 'cause here we are still talking about them, like Jaws: The Revenge, and in some cases Jaws 3. They don't have a lot of fans, but I mean, there are people that do like them. So, yeah, that would be a pretty interesting read from if you really wanted to dive into a deep insight about it. But
I'd be up for it.
So,
nice.
I can't imagine how hard it is writing a book by yourself, let alone with someone else, because some people are for collaboration and some people are not. So when you and Travis sit down and on either book, what's your process like? How do you choose who's doing what, and what's that like? I'm a big behind the scenes guy. We have our own little Halloween 4 sequel coming up here, our fan film, and Ray and I have been collaborating on that and involving other people in different areas of the film. And it's tough. But 2 books like the size of what you guys have done with the Halloween series here, where does it start? I can't imagine how complicated the process might be.
Well, I had never had a co-writer before. This was my first time co-writing a book, and I didn't plan to have a co-writer. I had planned to write the first book by myself. But I went to do an interview with Robert Harders, who was one of the original writers on Halloween 5. And he told me, hey, I just did an interview on this. It's really great. I said everything I had to say. And that was an interview by Travis Mullins, who was my co-writer. And so I went to Travis and emailed him and introduced myself, and I wanted to license that interview from him to use. And in talking with Travis, it very quickly became apparent to me that he really knew his stuff. He's very smart, very sharp, and a great writer. And it went from, hey, would you like to contribute some or look over what I've written, to all of a sudden I had a co-writer. And it's been a wonderful collaboration on my end. I think it's really been so beneficial to have him on these two books with me. In terms of how we approach it, usually we would work in separate directions. And so like I would take one screenplay or movie and he would take another. We would write, to a first draft and then swap them. And the other person would go through, change, revise, add, build onto it until, we would ping pong that back and forth until we had a draft that we agreed on. And speaking of Travis, I got to give him credit, because some of the most interesting discoveries we had with Taking Shape and Taking Shape 2 are because of him. On the first Taking Shape, it was he who found the original Nigel Neal screenplay for Halloween 3, which is the rarest of the rare. I mean, Tommy Lee Wallace doesn't even have that screenplay. We checked. Yet Travis managed to find it, and we were able to use it as research, which is a huge attraction for that book, I think, for fans of Halloween 3. I love Halloween 3. It's one of my absolute favorites. On Taking Shape 2, Travis managed to track down and interview Shim Bitterman, who was the original credited screenwriter on Halloween 5. Now, Shim has never given an interview on Halloween 5 before. He's never talked about it. And yet Travis managed to break him down. I don't know how. Maybe blackmail. It really. And Shim not only divulged so much new information about Halloween 5, but he also talked about how he had been hired and paid to write Halloween 4, which we created an entire chapter on that. We had no idea. And Travis also found, the Halloween 4 that brought back Laurie Strode. There was an official draft of Halloween 4 before they knew Jamie Lee Curtis was retiring from horror, where they brought back Laurie Strode. And Travis was able to track down that script and one of its screenwriters, which blew my mind.
Wow.
So having a co-writer is really great.
That goes to, I was going to ask a question, like how in-depth both books are. Did either of you have like any serious trouble or roadblocks or difficulty in actually getting the source material did you have any difficulty getting a hold of anybody? Did you have enough to like were there any like major roadblocks in the way of like trying to like reach out to people? Did anybody try to give you a hard time?
Well, there were, some screenwriters were more open to talking about their projects than others, and those are the ones that we featured in the book. Some screenplays we weren't able to get our hands on. Sometimes the writers just straight up denied having anything to do with it, despite, executives name dropping, oh yeah, I worked with this writer, and they didn't want to, the writer completely denied it, and so we didn't want to publish, things the writer didn't want to talk about. And there were a few lost sequels that we would have, if we had more time, I think we would have included, but coming up to October, which we wanted to release this book in October, and being already at 600 pages, at a certain point, we just had to say, this is Taking Shape 2. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, we'll do an expanded version with those other lost sequels.
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
I was going to leave it to the end, but I'm sitting here and I've made sure to not ask you this question privately, because I could see how this question would come across annoying, especially in today's day and age where it's like, you just got a book. Like, don't ask me about any more. Read this one. Jeez. But I'm sitting here, and you make very clear during the prologue that it doesn't include all the lost sequels, and there was more that you would have liked to done. I imagine there's probably additional stories behind the movies that actually got made. I can't help but think, obviously, I'm assuming you want to take some time off now because you've been nonstop, but, Halloween Ends is penciled for 2022. Wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 2023. Is there any chance whatsoever we could see a final trilogy book of sorts and see it taking shape 3 in the next couple of years? Obviously, it doesn't sound like anything's set in stone, but has it at least not been completely written off?
So let me first say that Travis and I haven't had the first conversation about taking shape 3. I'm personally so overdosed on Halloween right now, even though I love it to death. We've read over 5,000 pages of screenplays and treatments in the past 24 months.
Wow.
And so we're not looking at taking shape 3 right now, but if we one day were, there is so much more to cover. You could write so many books about this franchise. I'm really flattered when people email or comment that the first Taking Shape was such a great thorough companion to the movies that were made. And it's not a companion. It's not a complete companion. The first Taking Shape is a development book. And so we're really only talking about the story and the narrative evolution. We're not talking about the cast and the actors that played Michael and the mask and the effects and the music and what happened on set. We're only really talking about it from a pre-production standpoint, mostly. And so in that regard, there is so much more you could say about it. That doesn't mean we're ready to say it. We're not. But
yeah.
And of course, with new movies coming out and more lost sequels, there's tons more.
That brings me, I have a question that I've been pondering ever since I closed the book after I finished it, and I don't want to reveal too much because there's people obviously that haven't read it yet. But because you mentioned before we went on the air about H2O being your favorite, and not to go into detail, but a long time ago I was downtown Toronto in a Hollywood memorabilia store where you could buy posters, T-shirts of all your favorite films, and they had a script section there. And I went over to the horror ones just to see what they have. And I'm flipping through to the H, and I get to Halloween, and they had a Halloween 4, which ended up being just the one that came out in theaters. And then it was, remember the year, it was 1998. There was Halloween 7, The Revenge of Laurie Strode. And I think it was written by Kevin Williamson. I could be wrong on that. But it tied in 4, 5, 6 with H2O, and I noticed that was not in your book, Taking Shape 2. Did you come across that script and just decide not to put it in, or?
So we actually did a fairly lengthy section on The Revenge of Laurie Strode in the first Taking Shape.
Yes.
Because it was it was an early iteration of H2O that we didn't consider it a lost sequel per se, because It was just like early drafts of it.
Right.
But yeah, it's so interesting. Kevin Williamson, I interviewed him for Taking Shape, and his memory is a little fuzzy because he was so incredibly busy at the time. He was being pulled in different directions. He was trying to get Teaching Mrs. Tingle off the ground. He was literally launching Dawson's Creek. He turned down Halloween H2O several times because he didn't have the time for it. But there were efforts to rope in the storyline of 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And the rumors that you read online are not incorrect. People will say they're incorrect. They're not incorrect. Mm-hmm. There was a thought. It was a thought that was shot down because they didn't use it. But there was briefly a thought that you could make nods to those movies, and they just ultimately didn't go in that direction.
Right. The scene that sticks out with me specific is the girl in Carrie Tate's class who does the Haddonfield murder project that sends Laurie running into the bathroom to throw up because this girl has listed everything that happened between 4, 5, and 6 to Jamie Lloyd. And when the movie came out in summer of '98, I knew what to expect, and the movie was completely different. And I'm like, that's not the script I read. What the heck happened to it? So, well, that's a little more insightful, so that you don't consider it really a lost sequel. So, but it was because I was looking for it in your new book, and was just curious of why it was absent. So, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, go back to the first Taking Shape. I think there in some early drafts there were I want to say there was a mention of Jamie Lloyd's grave in. Because there was a detective subplot that they cut out of H2O.
Yes.
And in the early versions of the detective screenplay, I want to say that they went to look at Laurie Strode's grave in Haddonfield realized it was a fake grave, and beside her grave was Jamie Lloyd, which was in the story, it was a real grave. Jamie Lloyd had died, and so they were trying to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, that's some incredible insight, guys. Frank Riker in with a super chat. What story did you guys discover that broke your heart because it didn't get made or would have been a good movie?
So many of them. But the ones that I like the best, and I'll use Shim Bitterman's Halloween 5 as an example here, are the ones that challenge our perception of Loomis. For the most part, Dr. Loomis, you know, he's a valiant hero who can do no wrong. You know, he's always selfless and chasing the boogeyman and trying to warn everyone. But in Shim Bitterman's Halloween 5, which gets its own chapter in Taking Shape 2, Loomis has the same goal as Michael Myers in that he believes Jamie Lloyd is evil, and she in the script she kind of is, and Loomis is actively trying to murder her, just like The Shape, which is shocking and insane. I love that one.
I was taken aback by that. I was like, whoa. I don't know how I would have felt about that had that been the version that was released. Because, yeah, we have a perception of Loomis as the hero, albeit a little bit crazy, but you're always cheering for him. So that might have had changed the fans' outlook on that character had that been made.
So, I mean, were there any of the movies that attempted, and I'm not at this part in the book yet, I'll acknowledge, but obviously there was a lot of movies that were attempted to get off the ground between the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and Halloween 2018. Did you receive any pushback towards writing any of those stories from anybody?
No, we after Halloween 2, we covered a couple different attempts at Halloween 3D, and Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier were very forthcoming, and they Travis interviewed them, and those are fantastic interviews in Taking Shape 2. I can say that. We covered after they did Halloween 3D, they tried to do kind of a second relaunch of the franchise called Halloween 3.0, which is also very interesting because, you've seen Halloween remade once. Well, how do you remake it again so soon? They tried to. And then you had another attempt at Halloween Asylum, which had already been attempted several times. And Steph Hutchinson has written some of the best Halloween comics out there. And he directed the Halloween 25 Years of Terror documentary. He did several treatments or screenplays trying to kind of reinvent the series. And so, yeah, there's some real interesting efforts to find a direction, because after Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, man, there was no direction left for the series to go in. Whoever came to the series had to bring that direction with them. And so that's what's most interesting, that all the attempts between Halloween 2 and Halloween 2018, they're all so different.
It's there's just, wow, there's so much you could ask. Is like, I don't, without spoiling anything, where I'm like, I love the book. It is so informative, and for a Halloween fan who wants the insight and to be able to like sink your teeth into all the backstories of the series and everything. But there were a lot of sequels that you did mention that I'm looking at them and I'm like, thank God that didn't get made. If you could pick one of, like, thank God that didn't get made, which one would you pick? I have my pick, but what one would be yours? I'm curious. Without bashing anybody's work, of course.
That's the really hard part, because I don't genuinely hate, I don't think, any screenplay that we cover in the book.
Can I say Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? Am I allowed to say that?
What do you think? You tell me yours.
I'm going with any crossover between Michael and Pinhead. I didn't get it. Some of the ideas were like original and interesting, But you're talking about changing the whole mythology of the entire series to bring it, to mix it in with a horror icon who, for a lot of people, isn't considered a horror icon. I'm okay with the first Hellraiser, but anything after that, and you do mention it in the book, is that they were pretty much straight to DVD or straight to video disasters. So, and I don't know if Pinhead would be the right choice if you were to do a crossover with Michael. It's just the one idea about the puzzle box being the reason for Michael killing Judith in the first place really threw me off. I just, like, I don't see it. And so that would have been my choice. Anything with Michael and Pinhead, I was just thinking, thank God that didn't get made.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on that, because as a fan of those franchises, the 10-year-old in me wants to see the Shape and Pinhead go at it. But then, the adult in me who appreciates film as a more serious artistic medium goes, that's the worst idea ever. Yeah, I think I'll say there's two things that strike me as a little cringy in two of the screenplays. One is in the first version of Halloween 666. I think there's a lot of value in this screenplay. I just think it needed further development. But in the first version of Halloween 666, which is the one that Quentin Tarantino wanted him to produce it, they used virtual reality. Bob Weinstein was really big on virtual reality. And this wasn't even something the screenwriter thought of. Phil Rosenberg was open in saying that he was asked to include virtual reality, which he knew nothing about. But there's a part in Halloween 666 where they use virtual reality to go back in time and spy on an ancient Celtic ceremony of Samhain to see where Michael's bloodline was cursed for the first time. And it's like Back to the Future. It's crazy. That's not how virtual reality works.
No.
And I don't think Phil Rosenberg would have put that in the script if he wasn't asked. I'm sure he wouldn't have. But people get so stuck on the virtual reality that they don't want to look at the other parts of that script that are pretty good or could have been a fresh angle for the series.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is probably a loaded question, but when you look at all the lost sequels that you had in the book, and we know there's more, obviously, and let's say you had the deep pockets to go up to Trancas and be like, okay, we're gonna do this film. I'm dead set at seeing this film come to life, and you can only choose one. What one would it have been?
That was my next question.
I'm so being so difficult here because depending on the day of the week, there's a number of stories in this book that I would have loved to have seen realized on the big screen. I was really a fan of the ones that took place at Smith's Grove, whether it was Smith's Grove when it was an operational hospital or Smith's Grove years later when it was shut down and abandoned. I thought that's a great locale for the Shape that we haven't really seen before. I mean, we saw it a little bit in Rob Zombie's Halloween, but I mean, not in a great way. I'd love to see it without all the grime of Rob Zombie's worldview. And I also liked some of the screenplays. I think there's 3 different stories in the book that put Michael Myers on death row. They have him going to the electric chair. They have him up for lethal injection. And I think that's an interesting concept that really, because I like takes on Halloween that are new. I mean, the last one we got, Halloween 2018, that was nostalgic comfort food. I appreciated that very much, but I'm ready for us to go in some new directions now. And putting him on death row, you could go somewhere new with that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that really are still to this day upset that Halloween Returns didn't get made.
I'm one of them.
And the funny thing is, I'm pretty convinced, and this is my personal belief, that Halloween Returns would have been a perfect title for Halloween 2018. But since Halloween Returns, the script was like everybody had it, and the story was out there, naming 2018 Halloween Returns is probably off the table for them, I'm assuming. But
Well, you know what's funny is the whole reason they didn't make Halloween Returns is because Dimension Films lost the rights to Halloween. They reverted back to Miramax, and
I remember
since
reading
Miramax and Dimension are no longer the same company, Halloween Returns stayed with Dimension, and so Miramax couldn't just take that title and use it because Dimension had bought and paid for that script.
Wow. So a lot of behind the scenes political issues to an extent. And I mean, that's kind of the way of the industry, though. There's, you know, it happens in more than just this franchise. But I know when we were given, you know, we have some connections to the stuff that's going on at Blumhouse. Like, there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen with Halloween movies. Even now, like, there's so many different production companies involved that everybody's got to be on the same page, and it makes it hard to finally get one of these out there.
Sure.
Frank Riker sends in a super chat, says, in your opinion, who do you think has the biggest grudge against the franchise through your research?
The biggest grudge? In what way? That has to be...
Frank, you want to provide some more context, and we'll get another question in here.
I think I might know where he could go with this, but
Frank's one of our chat mods. So, Ray, you got another question here before I?
well, not necessarily a question, but just a comment to follow up to what he just said about Michael being on death row. Like, Jason Voorhees is a character you're not going to see on death row, or even facing trial. Like zombie Jason being carted through a courtroom full of lawyers and press. Like, it would have been so cool to see Michael without the mask, without, you know, the coveralls, actually facing trial and being sentenced to death, and actually having police security guards taking him down and strapping him into a chair. Like, that would have given a whole outlook of Michael that I don't think we've seen yet. The closest they've came was 2018 of him in the hospital. We've never really seen anything, you know, like you just described. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. I mean, maybe we'll see it one day, but...
And it's so funny, the Michael on death row thing, since we have 3 versions of Michael on death row in the book, one of them is a little goofy. Even the screenwriters admit this, because this was another Bob Weinstein move. It's Halloween Asylum 2013, where Michael goes to the electric chair, and instead of the electricity killing him, it gives him superpowers.
Yes.
And the screenwriters, that wasn't in their first draft, Josh Stolberg, said that when they heard that from Bob Weinstein, they both just cringed a little and did their best with it. But they wanted him, like, being able to jump huge distances and, like, crush objects in his hand. And he's just like, it reminded me of Ernest Goes to Jail, actually.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah, like electricity bringing Jason Voorhees back from the grave type thing.
So back to Frank's question. I'll say it again. He said, in your opinion, who do you think has the biggest grudge against the franchise through your research? And then he says, maybe instead of wording it like that, who do you think feels the most let down or betrayed that their movie didn't get made? Before Dustin goes, from reading the first Taking Shape, it really does feel like... I might be killing his pronunciation of his last name, but Daniel Ferrens. I really do feel like he was shafted kind of quite a bit with the Halloween 6 stuff, and
I agree.
And they basically just changed the way you guys worded it. They basically just changed whatever the hell they wanted to change during the process, and without consulting him. And I do feel like he got the short end of the stick. But what's your take on that, Dustin? And did anybody just really feel, you know, resentful maybe towards the fact that, you know, maybe they thought it was definitely going to happen and just didn't?
No, no one was bitter, to answer that question. And I think if they were bitter, they wouldn't have wanted to talk about their involvement. For the most part, the 20-odd people that we interviewed for Taking Shape 2 were excited to finally get a chance to share their ideas and talk about what almost happened. They all love the franchise. They've been fans of the franchise since before they wrote their screenplays. And so they were happy to talk about it, some of them for the first time, finally. With Daniel Ferrens, man, that guy got bent over a barrel by multiple people.
Yes.
I even commented to him in Taking Shape in our interview that if anyone has a reason to feel bitter about their involvement with Halloween, it's him. But he doesn't. He is so positive and happy to talk about it and engage with fans. You know, Daniel Farrens wrote, I believe, the first Halloween comic that came out. He has been involved with various documentaries and conventions and reunion screenings. He championed for years the producer's cut of Halloween 6 to get it released. Even though the producer's cut isn't like some perfect representation of his vision, it's still completely screwed up. It is not what he wrote. He still gets behind the film. He still supports it. And I respect him. I told him that. I said, I've got so much respect for the positive attitude you've managed to keep with it.
Fun fact here, Daniel and I have actually spoken on Facebook a couple of times, and he is one guy that we're working on getting on the channel, just scheduling, obviously. Scheduling with anybody and trying to make schedules work is just insanely hard, so we definitely hope to have Daniel on in the, if not the near future, in the future. Travis sends in a super chat. My favorite part of the first book is the interview with Curtis Richards, because I love the novel. Since the interview has been there, any developments for a reprint? You'd think so. Like Mr. Curtis says, there's money to be made.
If there are developments, I haven't heard of them. I've had some publishers ask me since the book came out if I knew how they could go about getting that published. I don't. As far as I know, Trancas or Compass International Pictures retains the rights. Curtis insists that he doesn't, that the rights reverted to the studio, and that he has tried several times over the years to reach out to the powers that be to get the book reprinted, because he would love to see it reprinted, even though he wouldn't make a dime because he has no intellectual claim to the book. It was a work for hire kind of deal. Even he would love to see it reprinted just for the pride of having that back out there, because he was proud to be a part of it. He never, no one's really ever interviewed him about it. I mean, when I reached out to him for Taking Shape, he's like, yeah, I'd love to talk about it. I never get to talk about it. And so I think it'd be great to see Halloween reprinted. It'd be wonderful to have 2 and 3 back out there. We're fortunate that Halloween 4 is in circulation right now. I think Nicholas Grabowski's Halloween 4 novel is still going. But why can't every movie have a novel? Like, I need every Halloween to have a novelization.
There's your next project. I'll help. I got nothing to do.
Wow. Ray, next question.
My next question goes to about not without divulging too much or diving really too deep into details. How many versions of Halloween 6 do you think there were that could be considered lost sequels that you didn't get a chance to talk about in your book? Because, I mean, 6 is so convoluted and polarizing and very controversial with fans. And, like, I know from to clear up the rumors, I've heard that there's more than 10 that were, like, still out there that some people might not even know about. Do you have any insight to that?
So it's really, Travis and I had to really create a kind of criteria for what we considered a lost sequel and what we considered an earlier version of something.
Right.
And so with Halloween 6, I know for Daniel Farrens, he wrote at least 10 different versions of his own screenplay that weren't just like different, they were wildly different, like seriously different. But I don't know that I would consider those lost sequels. The first director for Halloween 6, the second director, Matthew Patrick, he came on board with the second set of screenwriters that we talk about in the book. We interview Matthew Patrick and we interview several of the Halloween 6 screenwriters. He came on board with the second set of screenwriters and then wrote his own version that was different from theirs. And that was the one, Halloween 6 very nearly went before cameras before Joe Chappelle ever got involved. Before Daniel Farrens had been officially hired, they were up in Salt Lake City in a warehouse scouting locations and casting, and they had a cinematographer, they had crew hired, and it got shut down right before cameras were set to roll. And so at the end of the day, honestly, who knows how many versions of Halloween 6 there are? I wish I had a better answer for you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. It actually makes it a little bit more interesting, maybe not knowing, but yeah, like because it's funny how the original title was 666, and it was literally the film that almost, in many ways, killed the franchise right off, or almost sent it to direct to video after that. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense to me. Halloween 666 is a very cool title. Oh, it's like, the devil, right? The mark of the beast. But it has no relevance to any screenplay that I've seen. Like, no real relevance. Because, I don't know. I guess I thought it sounded cool.
I can tell you we did a video on that portion of your book. Not a live stream, which should have been a live stream. Would have been more time. But I was trying to do a video on that portion of your first book several months ago. And so, like, I went back and I reread that part of the book, and I'm sitting there trying to make notes, figuring out how I can do it in, like, a little 5 to 7 minute video. And I'm just like, it's not possible. There's too much information here to go from. Like, you start with the Carpenter and the New Line Cinema trying to get the rights and potentially shoot Michael up into space. And then, just from the start of that process, basically after Halloween 5 ends to when Halloween 6 comes out. And then obviously you have the 2 different versions of the movie. It's just it's a remarkable story. It in itself feels like it could be its own little novel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or a documentary, really, about where it almost went to space, where it did go, and then the documentary on Halloween 6, this with the complete collection from a couple years ago. That's a great documentary, but they could have been a little more blunt in some of the behind the scenes squabbles, I guess you could say. Hopefully one day someone will do a more direct telling of that story, because Halloween 6 is nothing but controversy. It's controversy from start to finish.
That's an understatement. That's definitely an understatement. And it's I know a lot of people can't stand Halloween 6. I actually quite like it. It's not my favorite, but I find it very watchable. I prefer the producer's cut. But when you read some of the stuff that Daniel wanted to do, it's like, oh, why couldn't we've gotten like a movie that was at least really close to what he wanted to do? I would have been really on board with that. Intel Wild sends in a super chat. He says, haven't read either one yet, but they both sound fascinating. Going to order them both today from Amazon. There you go. We had a couple other questions come in. Co-host of our Star Wars show here, Kieran, was asking earlier. See if I can find it. Okay, what was your... so this doesn't necessarily mean it's your favorite, of the Lost sequels, but what was your favorite of those sequels to like do research on? What became like the most... compelling of the stories to be like, okay, I got to find out more. I got to keep going.
And I'm sorry, you got to forgive me. Something's going on at my house that I have to deal with, so I'm not trying to interrupt, screw with the show here. I'm very sorry. Please forgive me.
Gee, that is such a hard question to answer, because I find them all so interesting, but I think the sequel that I was most excited to hear about, that it existed, and then to read, and then to hear directly from the screenwriter about, was the Halloween 4 from 1987 that had Laurie Strode. That one, from the second I heard that they officially considered a Halloween 4 with Laurie Strode, my interest and curiosity were piqued. Like, I want to know more about that. And then reading the screenplay was fascinating. And then hearing the reasoning behind some of the decisions that was made. Travis interviewed Mark Allen Medina, who co-wrote that screenplay. And there's so many interesting things in that story, like Laurie's back, Loomis is back. On top of that, Loomis is Laurie's doctor in that story, which is a really interesting change to their dynamic, because one of my biggest, not regret, the things that I don't like about Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 is that the two biggest characters almost never interact. Loomis and Laurie have practically no relationship in Halloween and Halloween 2. In Halloween, he swoops in to save her, and he's gone. In Halloween 2, he swoops in to save her, and he's gone again. And so to see them have all of this meaningful interaction, man, that was cool. Like those are two iconic characters finally getting to intertwine their stories.
I would love to see Loomis as her doctor. I think that would have been absolutely spectacular. I love Loomis. Speaking of Loomis, we have a question here in the chat. Intel Wild again. Any extra news on Donald Pleasance and his drinking escapades?
No. God, Donald Pleasance is so fantastic. Like, even if he never did Halloween, he's incredible.
Yep.
But he did do Halloween. I love Donald Pleasance's candidness. You know, that guy had zero fucks to give when he was interviewed about Halloween. Like, he will tell you what he thinks. Like on Halloween 5, if you go back and read the Fangoria articles about Halloween 5, the man is being interviewed on the set near the director, Dominique Othenin-Girard, and he's talking about how, yeah, I don't like the story on this one, and I'm not getting along with the director, and this and that. Like, he's just putting it out there. And so that's what I hate, that we didn't have a chance to hear more from Donald, that his passing in what was it, 95 was, or 4, premature. I would have loved to have had him around for a lot longer because he was such an interesting character.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I love Loomis. I love Donald Pleasance. He's, he's a legend to many, and rightfully so. Where are we here? I know you got to run here in a second. So, we'll put a 5-minute clock up then for everybody. If anybody else has any more questions for Dustin, now's the time to, send them in. Apologies, Ray. People on the channel know what Ray's wife's been going through, and it sounds like there's a bit of an emergency, so he had to step out. Alrighty. I'm just trying to. The chat likes to skip on me here. Nice. That is awesome.
Cameo appearance.
Okay, well, I'll go to my next question then. This is away from the books. For you personally, what is your favorite Halloween movie and why? And what is your least favorite Halloween movie and why? Loaded question. I'm an H4 guy, so a lot of the traditionalists love to just throw the stones at me, and how dare I not pick the original? And I love the original, but I don't know. H4, man. H4 does it for me.
So here's where I'm going to lose everyone who's watching this. I'm going to absolutely piss everyone off. I'll say that my favorite movie is Halloween, but I'm going to address it as, I'm going to modify your question to be about the sequels. What's my favorite sequel? And setting aside Halloween 3, because I hold Halloween 3 on par with Halloween 1, my favorite sequel is Halloween H2O. I've got the H2O mask behind me. I'm just such a huge fan of H2O. It was the first Halloween that I saw in theaters. I remember the buzz for Halloween H2O was massive. Like, the buzz for H2O was bigger than Halloween 2018. And I'll argue that with anyone. Like, we had, it was just a good time. But also, I love the story of H2O. It just appeals to me. I know people don't like the Scream vibes to it. I do. My least favorite Halloween sequel, I don't know which to say. I could say something about several of them. Probably for me, it's Halloween 2, the original. Okay, let me explain that. Halloween 2, the original. Everyone loves Halloween 2. I think it has a very weak screenplay. And John Carpenter has admitted this. John Carpenter will say that just as directly as I did. Halloween 2 has a terrible script. The cast is incredible in Halloween 2. The locations are great. The music is wonderful. Dick Warlock is fantastic. Everything about Halloween 2, the cinematography, Halloween 2 is wonderful everywhere except for the script. Laurie Strode spends the entire movie in a hospital bed doing jack shit. That bugs me. And so Halloween 2 is probably my least favorite sequel for that reason. But then someone's going to hear that and go, what about Resurrection? And I'm like, well, God, okay, maybe it's Resurrection.
Wow.
Because Laurie spends most of that movie in a body bag. So it's about the same level of activity as Halloween 2.
Alrighty. Again, maybe I got lost a little somewhere in the comments earlier, but Kieran asks, what is your favorite moment and why is it the H4 ending?
The H4 ending is so wonderful, because it's. I mean, if to watch Halloween 4 with someone who's never seen it and doesn't have that twist spoiled, that blows people's minds still. If you can watch that with like a Halloween 4 virgin that doesn't know it's coming, it's wonderful. And there's a certain disappointment for me that Halloween 5 kind of like craps out on that direction. And I understand why they did it. There were different reasons from various people, but that's what I love about the Halloween 5 we have in Taking Shape 2. Shim Bitterman is able to talk about his original vision for Halloween 5, which continued on from Halloween 4's ending. I mean, in Halloween 5, originally, Jamie Lloyd is still killing people. She kills someone else like half an hour after she attacked her mother, her foster mother. And so it's really a much darker take. Now, Halloween 5 has a lot of wonderful attributes. I'm not saying Halloween 5 isn't worthwhile just because it doesn't continue down that dark road. But I would have loved to have seen them really commit to this story direction of, is Jamie Lloyd evil? Is she possessed? Is she crazy? Like, what's up with that? And what we got was Jamie Lloyd was temporarily overcome with, I guess, her uncle's spirit. I don't know.
I mean, that, for me personally, seeing what H5 did to follow that up, that was basically the number one reason why I wanted to continue after H4 and do its own sequel, right? Like, we wanted to finish that story to the best of our ability, which is why we launched Haddonfield the Vanished. We are gonna welcome Ray back as soon as he gets his headset on and microphone up. We'll let him get one or two more in, and we'll end this thing. I know you got a jet.
I'm okay on time if you guys have anything else you want to talk about.
Oh, okay, fantastic. It's good to have a little flexibility. Ray, your mic's off. Nope, still off. How about now?
Yeah,
Yep,
I'm back.
It's hot.
I'm
There you go.
really, really sorry. Some people just, not to go into too much detail. A lot of you out there know what's going on with my wife, Mary Jane, and she does send her appreciative thanks, but she decided to play some music for our grandson who's over. It's his birthday today, and the psycho neighbor downstairs called the police on her for playing music for Landon's birthday. So...
yeah, I've been there. Neighbors are not all neighbors. You get great neighbors. We have a great bunch to the one side of us and a not so great bunch to the other side. So I totally get it. Ray, any final questions here? Maybe get a couple in.
Questions? Well, without I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't read the book, but I if I can just throw in a comment, Taking Shape 1. Amazing. Taking Shape 2, I read so much, but that is the best book I've read the past couple of years, besides the first one, obviously. And I highly recommend it. If you are a diehard Halloween fan, or just, regular Halloween fan, or just a fan of horror, Dustin, thank you so much for this work, because for a diehard Halloween fan like me, this is like Christmas Came Early. This is just absolutely amazing book, so informative, well put together, well thought out, and kudos to you. You both did a great job. Love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's high praise. As fans, we wrote the kind of book that we wanted to read, and I can speak for Travis as well. Our goal with both books was to find a way to reveal something about these movies that even the most die-hard fans didn't know, which was really tough, because after all that's been written and said, after all the documentaries and home video supplements and audio commentaries and articles and all this stuff, was there anything left to dig up? And fortunately, there was. And so when the most diehard fans say things like, we learn new things, that's the highest praise we can get. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I not a Halloween encyclopedia, but I do know a lot about it. But because of your books, now I know even more that I didn't know. So, yeah, you were spot on with that one. Great job.
I've always said to people, a comment that I get, whether we do a lot of Star Wars stuff here on the channel, as well. And like people go, well, I love the movies, but I don't like reading. And it's like, specifically when your first book came out, I came on here and I said to people, look, you might not be a big reader. Maybe reading's not your thing. But if you are a diehard Halloween fan, you absolutely need to read this first book. And now that the second one's out, and albeit I'm only about 100 pages into it, again, if you're a diehard Halloween fan, I just don't understand how you could not purchase this book and give it a shot, especially considering we're still basically a year away from seeing Halloween Kills. What better way to kill some time? The part that I liked is because I don't read things super fast. I like to take my time with it. And I really do feel like the second book is designed, like you can knock it out in a couple of nights if you have a couple of free days like Ray did. But I also feel like just with how insane our schedule is with Haddonfield to Vanished and work, and I got a 9-month-old, that's like, okay, I can sit down and read one of the lost sequels in a couple of days, and then put it away for a bit and move on to the next one and the next one. I do feel like it is also designed for a long reading experience, and I believe you talked about that in the prologue.
Very much so. I wouldn't recommend anyone binge it just because it's so overwhelming. It was overwhelming to write, but I can't imagine to read it. It's got to be overwhelming because it's 24 stories that you probably didn't know about. And so to take in all that at once, if you can do it, more power to you. But also, if you're not a reader, because I know not everyone is, people have different interests, but if you want to know what's in the book and you're not a reader, there's a great audiobook of Taking Shape 1 that's on Audible from Amazon. Encyclopocalypse Productions created it, and it's a 13-hour audiobook reading of the first book. And so it's broken up into movies, movie by movie, and so you can skip around with that too if you want to just listen about Halloween 3, or maybe you want to listen about Halloween 5, whatever you got. The audiobook's a great option if you don't necessarily want to read a 200,000-word book.
One of our Patreon members, Jess, asks, was there ever a better Halloween 2 sequel you preferred the pitch of?
I don't think so. There's the one they talked about doing where Laurie Strode is in a high-rise apartment building. I don't know about that. I love the idea of continuing the same night and Michael tracking Laurie to the hospital. I just wish Laurie Strode had more to say and do. Like, I wanted to see Laurie react to her best friends being murdered. Like, she just discovered their bodies and she never talks about it. I would have liked to have seen Laurie ask, where the hell is Tommy and Lindsay, these two little kids I was just watching? Because the last Laurie saw, they were running from the house out into the street in their pajamas. Like, are they okay? Like, we don't get to hear her kind of get up to speed on anything that's happening. And so that's what I would have liked to have seen, a little bit more of her processing what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that on Halloween 2. Like, even the Rick Rosenthal cut, which has a lot of additional footage and more dialogue between some of it, expands a little more on each of the characters inside the hospital. It still does not expand on Laurie's character. So, yeah, I think they could have given Jamie Lee Curtis a lot more to do in that film. It's a good point.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap this up here, I have to ask, I know you're on your downtime right now, and you at least didn't write off the idea of a Taking Shape 3 one day, but do you already have your next, like, an idea on what you're doing next, or is the slate clean and you're just going to take some time and spend some time with family?
My slate is never clean. I do have some projects that I'm working on that I hope to release next year, that I'm excited about, some books. But I have a policy of never talking about a project until it's finished. Yeah. I hate hyping stuff. I hate teasing stuff. And so I'll just say that I'm working on things and I can't wait to announce it when I do.
Would it still be horror genre stuff, or would you be moving? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Dustin, Ray, do you have any more, or are you good?
Well, I just want to say again, it's me especially, and probably a lot of other people out there, I'm sure. It's a book that I'm going to like seal in a bag because I stupidly smoke in my house, and I'm going to put it up in my closet. But I am definitely going to be taking this book out again from time to time. It's got a lot of reread value. So, yeah, tremendous job again. And thank you for spending the time to do this with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and best of luck with Haddonfield the Vanished. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's. I had someone ask me the other day, well, if you guys are going to be done shooting in December, why don't you release it in the spring or the summer? I'm like, well, I'm not editing the movie. I get to oversee it, but someone else is, and which means they got to fit it into their schedule, and we're not going to rush it, and we'll take our time with it, but can't wait for everybody to see it out there. Let's outro Dustin here properly. Dude, thank you for being patient with my questions over the months and leading up to this. And so far, again, I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm absolutely loving what I read. I just want to say the first story that we see in the book, all I'll say is there's something at a drive-in. And while I didn't like what happened at the end of that drive-in, I love the idea of Michael Myers at a drive-in movie theater. That is amazing. That was one of my favorite parts. And, if it wasn't for your book, I would have never known about it. So that's incredible, dude. And thank you for all you do for the community and taking the time for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Where can everybody find you at, man? Where can everybody find the book at and any of your other work, too?
To learn about my other books, you can go to harkerpress.com. Harker Press is my indie imprint. And all of my books are available on Amazon. So you can just search for my name, Dustin McNeil, or just search for Halloween movie book or Halloween book. We'll probably bring it up.
Awesome. Excellent stuff, dude. Well, it's appreciated, and I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. Thanks a lot, man.
Sure thing. Thank you.
That was Dustin McNeil, author of not only the first Taking Shape book, but Taking Shape 2. Ray, you and I have had an opportunity to dive into this thing now, as I'm trying not to completely butcher the graphics on the screen. How are, obviously you did binge it, so I want to ask you.
I sure did, yeah.
Were you, I know you read through books like crazy. I know you made the joke when I handed it to you that, I'll be done this in a day or two. Were you overwhelmed by the end of it? Because I know you read a lot of books quickly, but was it a lot to take in?
It was, because you would be thinking about a certain sequel was on my mind, and then I found that I was opening the book again just to go back to look to make sure I was thinking of the right one, and there's a lot to process, but it's just so informative, and you can everybody can. There's something in there for everybody. If you're a fan of 4, if you're a fan of 5, what could have been, I still think that if other people on the show here do buy the book, they might agree that there's still some films in there that could still work even with after Kills and Ends comes out. Hey, we're stuck for a Halloween idea. Go back and make one of these. I think definitely Halloween Returns, in my opinion, would work. So
it'll be interesting to see what direction they go after Kills and Ends. I'm still firmly for the let's make a Halloween 3 TV series. Just absolutely awesome stuff. So some house cleaning items here to do. We have basically shit is getting real now. We're going to be very busy from this point on. Ray is putting, what is there, 2 left to do? 2, I think? 2 scenes on The Vanished?
Oh, writing-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're pretty easy, though. It's more like...
Ray's putting the final touches on 2 scenes. Behind Ray is a plethora of things. You can sort of see them in the background over there, but we got just a wall of stuff in against the wall that's going out to the cabin to shoot the film with. We got stuff in the car. Haddonfield the Vanished is going. It's going strong. We're almost at our goal. We have a couple of people paying on the bigger payments that will definitely make us reach that goal. I can't express my appreciation to all you guys enough for supporting us on the level that you have. I can tell you that we shoot Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be day one of shooting, which is just nuts. It's here. And the nerves are definitely acting up a bit. And I got to tell you, I read a scene from Ray last night. So we already knew what the scene was, but there's like we've been honest with you from the beginning. The Edward Bates character is Ray's baby. That's his thing. And I'm reading this scene last night, and even me, knowing full well basically what was going to happen in the scene, am reading the scene, and I'm just like, oh wow, this is making me feel uneasy. This is
It was making me feel uneasy.
Ooh, so I mean, if you like horror, if you like feeling just weirded out and having that uneasy feel, I think we're going to be able to bring that to you guys. And anyways, next week's schedule, Tuesday, we have the Imperial Remnant broadcast, and we're going to do something special on that episode. We're going to figure it out this weekend, and then we'll advertise it. Wednesday, we have the first day of shooting for Haddonfield the Vanished. Thursday, we have Fandom Empire Live. And then Friday, we have the Lampkin Lane Roundtable special, where we're doing a 3-hour stream on October the 30th with 2 different sets of roundtables. First up, we'll be joined by the hosts of the Slaughtered Lamb movie podcast, Darren Sands and Frank Riker, who, by the way, are getting ready to release a Halloween 3 episode of their podcast where each time they play the Halloween 3 theme or Dr. Chalice starts to sound a little perverted, they each take a shot. And
they're going to be drunk in 5 minutes.
Well, they already recorded it, right? So Darren showed me a preview this morning, and I died laughing. So I can't wait for that to come out. That's going to be hilarious.
How old are you?
Good stuff. So we got an insanely busy week. Lots going on here at the channel. We're going to try to make sure the content keeps coming. I'm sorry, I forgot one. Tomorrow night at about probably 8 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Eastern, we are going to be doing the live Patreon stream, and we're going to dive into Halloween Kills a bit, and a part of that movie we haven't talked about. We're not going to spoil it, but we're certainly going to tease some things, and you can check that out on Patreon. Ray, any thoughts for you personally heading into filming on Haddonfield the Vanished now, and the support from the community, and that we're finally about to get this thing done?
Oh, the support has been great, and it's much appreciated, and especially out there knowing that times might be a little hard for people, but entertainment is something that has, especially when it comes to Halloween or Michael Myers or anything like this. Another reason why it's good to make this stuff is to just get people's mind off the shit going on in the world, and let's have a little fun for a change, and do something positive, and just and that the scene we're going to do Wednesday is a collaboration between Sean and I, and I'm really looking forward to it. The person we have coming to film with us worked with me on my first Halloween fan film, so she knows what she's doing, and it's not like everything's gonna have to be explained to a T to her. She's great. She's just knows how to, when we say cut, and when we say action. She showed up one night, and I'd never met her, and she was a last-minute replacement for somebody, and we knocked the scene out where that she was in about an hour. So yeah, she's great.
Awesome stuff. So yeah, we got lots more coming on the channel, guys. Again, the next 2 months or so, if there's not as much content on the channel, well, this is why we're in the thick of it with Haddonfield the Vanished. We're gonna squeeze in a couple of watch-alongs, though. I know I want to do The Shining, and I still want to do Halloween 6 and Halloween 3. It's some way, shape, or form over the next month or two, we'll get those 3 watch-alongs in and try to get Ray a part of some of them. I know Tommy hasn't seen The Shining yet, so...
What?
Yeah, right? How dare him? That piece of poop. Anyways, Ray, I know the answer to this, but where can everybody find you at?
Here. When I'm here. You can find me when I'm here. I might change it up one day. I don't know. I'm just really picky about social media.
Gonna start a chant. We want Ray. We want Ray. Or we want Edward. Ooh. Check us out on Instagram, everybody. Fandom Empire Now, Camp Haddonfield Podcast, Star Wars Renegades, and Star Wars IRB. at Phantom Empire Now, at SW Renegades, and at Star Wars IRB. Our Patreon's www.patreon.com/Fandom Empire. And then the Indiegogo campaign. I guess during that show, we were getting a bunch of donations because we are officially 100. Let me do my math correct here. We are officially 123 Canadian dollars. That's right. We are 123 Canadian dollars from reaching our goal. And when the next 123 Canadian dollars comes in, you'll see an impromptu video thanking you guys. I know there's a lot more than that coming in because there's some big payments coming across. So I know it's official. We're going to hit our goal. But when it officially says official, we'll do a quick impromptu stream for all you guys and gals out there. The support has been greatly appreciated, as always. And big thanks to Dustin McNeil, author of Taking Shape 2, and he has 4 or 5 other books, and I definitely want to spend some time checking them out. The Jaws ride intrigues me. I always wanted to go on that, never got the chance to do it. I'm going to have to look into that.
Heartbreaking, man.
But for Ray and Dustin, Tommy B, who did some of the advertising for this show before we went live, and everybody else at Phantom Empire, and again, to Brianna and Cody, we're thinking of you too. Just know that you're not alone, and we're all here for you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. The Boogeymen are, in fact, coming.